How on earth do free online games make any money? Well, it's actually much more insidious than you might think. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, I'm Josh Strife Hayes. I've spent most of my life playing, researching, and then analysing MMORPGs. I've covered topics from new player experiences to endgame dungeon guides. I've played and reviewed the 20 worst MMOs of all time, and then made beginner's guides to all of the good ones. But today we're going to get a little bit more analytical and talk about how free-to-play MMOs rely on the three-group phenomenon to drive income. Before we begin, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel for more MMO content, then clicking the bell so you don't miss a single video. A massive thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon and Twitch who make all my videos possible. Right, let's do this. Back in 2019, I made a video called Why Neverwinter is Dying, in which I laid out the exact design philosophies and design decisions the developing company Cryptic are making and will continue to make, which will irritate and annoy the player base to the point of making them all quit. And most Neverwinter fans laughed at me and told me I was wrong, and now Cryptic have made the exact decision I warned people about again. So why don't we examine those decisions again and try to understand why companies make them and how they relate to free-to-play MMOs in general. Then by understanding why companies do what they do, you as a player will understand why it annoys you so much. While this video will focus on the choices made by Cryptic, the developers of Neverwinter, they will actually apply to every single free MMO out there. Free in this context means the freemium models where you can play the full game for free but are encouraged to spend money in a cash shop or on an optional membership. Games like Neverwinter, Terra, Star Citizen, MapleStory, World of Tanks, or Conan Exiles, although elements of this monetization style do creep into more established MMOs with free trials like Guild Wars 2, Elder Scrolls Online after buying the base game, RuneScape, and Final Fantasy XIV. It's important to note before we start, this method does not include cosmetic-only items or vanity overrides. This only applies to items that affect your day-to-day gameplay. Right, let's discuss the most prevalent and financially successful method of running a free-to-play game and the player organization it requires. Put simply, it involves splitting the player base into three specific tiers of players, 1, 2, and 3, with 1 being new, 2 being invested and enjoying the experience and gameplay, and 3 being maxed out, then keeping as many people as possible in tier 2 because that's where you make the most money. Let's examine this model. When you begin playing a game, whatever game that may be, you are a tier 1 player. You can pick whatever class you like, whatever race you like, and wear whatever arm you like because you don't actually care too much about the metagame. The gameplay experience is enjoyable on a very superficial base level, and you're just happy to move around and push some buttons. The chance of you dying during this time is basically zero. At this stage of your gameplay experience, the game developers want you to feel challenged and capable without ever actually being in any danger at all, because failure doesn't make for a fun first few minutes. It's why in Guild Wars 2 you can take down an Earth Elemental without actually being able to die, and in Defiance you're given a minigun but can't actually be hit, and in the Elder Scrolls Online you fight through Cold Harbor with an NPC that will protect you. These are memorable experiences that make you feel powerful, but because the chance of failure is minimal, they're not actually achievements, they are just surface-level flashy moments. Game developers have one goal alone for every single player in Tier 1, and that is to get them enjoying the game enough and invested in their character enough to move them into Tier 2. The transition happens when you feel your character has a purpose in the world, when you feel you may be more important than others, or when you are given responsibility that others may not have. This can be achieved through narrative structure, making the player the chosen one, giving the player a rare item by a loot box, which by the way is the reason you always open at least one rare item in your first few loot boxes, or promising a future reward if the player returns, which is why games have daily sign-in bonuses. It makes you feel important. Tier 1 is a surface-level, gorgeous-looking, flashy, pretty, and exciting place to be, but ultimately it's shallow because you're not invested in the game yet. You don't care about the numbers or the stats or the items or the enemies or the story, you just like the moment-to-moment gameplay. But if the game does its job well, you will move into Tier 2 without even realizing it, and this is where the insidious monetization begins. Once you move into Tier 2, your experience of the game fundamentally changes. The game is no longer just a pretty-looking environment to exist in or play around on, it's now a series of puzzles to be solved and challenges to be overcome. In this tier, the superficial graphical element of the game actually takes second place to the mechanical. You as a Tier 2 player want to beat the game and you have the drive to succeed. If you've ever logged in to grind away for a few hours or to kill one more boss, gather some more ingredients, open a daily loot box, join your friends for a challenge run of something, you have been experiencing Tier 2 gameplay. Tier 2 players are motivated to solve anything the game throws at them, and game designers know this, so they place puzzle after puzzle in front of the players. Now, in this context, puzzle doesn't just mean a literal puzzle. It means any situation that requires a specific player input to solve. This includes quests, bosses, gathering materials or supplies, marketplace manipulation and merchanting, crafting materials and supplies into useful things, or gaining experience to become more powerful. Any event or gameplay mechanic that requires a specific input from you to achieve is a puzzle, and Tier 2 players are obsessed with solving puzzles. One of the largest signifiers that a player is within the Tier 2 demographic is how that player will perform the same action over and over and over again to increase a number or to add to a small chance of an item dropping. Tier 2 players are extremely motivated to become better and reach the top, because for your standard Tier 2 player, the only goal is to reach Tier 3. Tier 3 is where you have won. You have the maximum levels, you have maxed out equipment, you are as powerful as you can be, and you can proudly say you are the best. It is this coveted position that players strive for, the recognition from the community and personal fulfillment that comes from knowing you are the best at something. It's why games have high scores and why most MMOs allow players to rank themselves in loads of skills and boss kills. Tier 3 is where players want to be. So this is all great, Tier 1, 2 and 3 stuff, but how does it tie into monetization? Well, getting a player to move from Tier 1 into Tier 2 is done through a fun experience and an enjoyable gameplay loop. There's actually no reason to monetize this part of the experience. Game designers don't want to taint the early game experience with microtransactions yet, because they know monetizing this early will sour a player's opinion of the game before they've had a chance to become addicted, so they don't do it. But once you're in Tier 2 and the addiction has set in, it will begin. Remember, the entire point of a player within Tier 2 is to achieve more and solve the puzzles. The game designers know this, and so they start selling the only thing a player would find valuable: the ability to solve the puzzles faster, or to skip them altogether and get to Tier 3 faster. Let's take Neverwinter specifically. Once you start the high-level campaigns, you're invested in the game because they're a high-level requirement to start. You are firmly within Tier 2, and completing the campaigns now stands between you and the desired Tier 3. You can either spend the next 9 to 12 months finishing the campaigns — I'm not exaggerating that timescale, they are time-gated — or you can buy the campaign completion tokens and complete them all instantly for the low price of about £300. How about RuneScape 3 with the treasure hunter keys? Once you're a few weeks into the game, you could drop a few pounds and buy yourself the chance of some epic loot. Or how about a level boost in Terra, or the ability to run the once-a-day dungeon twice a day once it becomes relevant to you? Ever wondered why free players in Guild Wars 2 can't travel around easily, or why Final Fantasy XIV trial players can't trade with other players, or why The Elder Scrolls Online only includes the crafting bag with the monthly ESO membership? It's because by the time those situations become problems you're actually facing, you are firmly within the Tier 2 demographic and much more likely to want to solve them immediately and pay for the convenience to do so. All factors within a game that can be made into a puzzle are. Bank space is limited, so they can sell you more. Same with inventory space, character slots, world chat, skilling and material storage, guild banks, even game-breaking items like full party revive scrolls, instant one-hit kill darts against most enemies, free daily login bonuses. Every single factor that could be worsened just for the sake of selling a solution is. Now, Tier 1 players are never targeted with monetization because the game developers know they need to be given the free time and free, untainted experience to develop a love of the game. Tier 3 players aren't targeted because they don't need to buy anything because they're maxed out. But Tier 2 players, that's where your market is. That's where the impatient people are. The people who want the best right now. The people who want recognition immediately. And they are more often than not willing to pay for it. This is a classic sales tactic known as create the problem, sell the solution. If I have a business that removes graffiti from buildings, it's actually in my best interest to let people graffiti on the buildings. I want the bad things to happen because I sell the answer to it. I have zero interest in stopping the bad thing happening. In actuality, I have a vested interest in supporting it continuing because my income is derived from selling a solution to it. Knowing this, as a game designer, where do you want your players to be? You cannot charge those in Tier 1 because you'll make them run away, and you cannot charge those in Tier 3 because they have nothing they want to buy. so Tier 2 is the best place for them to be. This is why the openings of many games will rush you through the early levels so fast. It's why you can max out in a few days, and it's why the early experience is so streamlined to get you to the more challenging place, because game developers don't actually want you in Tier 1. And then on the opposite end of the scale, it's why so many MMORPGs commit the awful act of the rebalance, the nerf, or the straight-up destruction of power with a new expansion or patch. Game developers do not want players within Tier 3 because they cannot sell them anything they don't already have. Let's look at Neverwinter specifically, then expand outwards. One of the latest updates involves removing bonding runestones, one of the game's most powerful endgame items, which players have spent many months collecting and in some cases many hundreds of pounds upgrading, and then reducing the effectiveness of player-owned mounts in combat, which again have taken months and lots of money to collect. Other games do the same with their updates. It's why every new expansion or update can nerf certain classes or reduce the power of certain items or release new, more powerful premium items, because if you are weakened, you are no longer a Tier 3 player. You're now back down with the masses in Tier 2, and you now have the choice of resolve the puzzle slowly or pay to solve it faster. Maybe you're thinking that you played for several years and never spent a penny to get to the very top, in which case, well done. If that is the case, you'll know exactly how demotivating it feels every time there's a rebalancing patch and you're brought back down and have to regain your power. You'll know how unfulfilling it is to reach the heights of power and know it's only temporary. And you'll know how tempted you've been every single time to spend a little money to make the next time faster, because you are the exact player they are targeting. You, the player who doesn't spend money and is still at the top. You are the person they will weaken again and again in the hopes that you will either quit, which they won't care about because you weren't spending money anyway, or buy a boost to regain your power quicker and become a customer. So please understand, if you are a Tier 1 player, the game will be super fun right up until you're invested. Then once you're established in Tier 2, the grind will begin, the problems will start, and the solutions will suddenly be available for the low price of whatever the game thinks it can charge. Then once you reach the mythical Tier 3 and you have achieved everything, enjoy your time there, because any company who knows what they're doing will not let you stay there. You are not a potential customer while you're there, and they can't sell you solutions to problems you don't have. So they'll rebalance and make sure you are back down in Tier 2 just as soon as they can. This has happened with every freemium game and will continue to happen for as long as they remain online and as long as the players continue to give them money. I'm not saying they're not fun, or you're not allowed to enjoy them. I actually love Neverwinter and Terra, but be aware, your time within the Tier 2 group of players will be the majority of your time by design. You'll be chasing a constantly moving prize, and achieving the top is only ever a temporary thing, which you'll be encouraged to pay for every single time. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've started to understand a little more behind the secrets of how free-to-play MMOs monetize themselves and why game design is the way it currently is. Another massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon and Twitch who make all my content possible. You can support the Patreon from only £1 a month, or come chat to me on Twitch, or join our Discord. Links are all below. Thank you for your time and have, as always, a great day.